Hi. All right. It's 48-hour art check, round 39. You'll notice we don't have the intro, so we're going to fake it right now. It's 48-hour art check. Oh, round 39. And I'm getting slapped back, and that's because I didn't press mute. So it's late. So,
Because we're expecting at whatever time in the morning it is, people to show up in the chat right now.
yeah, exactly. That's a fair point. But you always got to keep an eye out anyway. So, it's super late, and we decided to do it because we want to keep with the 48-hour air check. So, let's go through this really quick. I guess I can explain so my friend Jim Lujan did a movie with Bill Plimpton, who's like a really excellent um,
Indie animator.
and it's this movie, Revengeance. And so I wanted to go. It's showing in Santa Monica right now. If you guys live in California, go support it. It's an indie film. It's going to be probably on a streaming service shortly. And like once it's on a streaming service, I think it'll be a bigger deal than it is, even though it is a huge deal because it's Jim Lujan and Bill Plimpton, and they're amazing. And it was really good. I watched it. It was good. Um, Excellent. So yeah. But anyhow, so that's where I was. I wanted to go support my friend, and yesterday I was literally gone all day recording an album with my band. And the way that usually goes is I'll assume like, oh yeah, I'll be out by 9, and then it's 2 in the morning, and we're still tracking stuff. Like, okay, albums are hard, demos are hard to track, so recording's hard. But anyhow, so that's a little bit of why we're kind of doing this at the odd hours that we are. So,
But I think it's important to point out that we're still doing 3 this week. So
mm-hmm.
even though even though I'm traveling and you've had the craziest weekend ever, we're still going to hit 3 this week.
Exactly. And we both have kids and jobs, and we managed to do it. So that's why you guys should join in and do it.
Yep.
Hold each other accountable. Make art. All right. Yeah, I'm pretty proud of us. I'll pat myself on the back right now. All right. So let's do this. So of your plans, what did you get done?
Okay, let me turn the camera around here. And I did this drawing of one of my bombshell series. And so I'm trying to decide, I don't know how well this is showing up, between the color hold lines or the black lines. And then I also did some convention math. And so I've got a spread of I have the potential to lose about $1,000 if I print everything and don't sell anything, or make about $4,800. So it'll be somewhere in the middle because I can't imagine selling out of everything, and I can't imagine not selling anything. But the one thing that I like is that my break-even point on the stickers is 35 packs or just 9 a day. And so I'm pretty sure I can sell 9 a day. And so I always do break-even points. Maybe we can talk about that a little bit later, but
I love it. I haven't done that. Like I've kind of roughly done that in my head before conventions, but I haven't done actual break-even points like I would for a business, and it's smart. That's brilliant. When I saw those notes, I was like, why haven't I done that? Because then you know your sales expectations, which is kind of smart since it's your own business. Like that's pretty smart to have.
Yeah, and it might be, I don't know, maybe that's what we talk about, because I think it's really easy to do, but it's really important. So, because it helps you make decisions. Like if your break-even point is ridiculously high and you don't think that you think that there's a chance you might make it, then you shouldn't do that thing. But if it's like, oh, I stopped losing money at some low number of sales, yeah, I could probably hit that.
Yeah,
it's just a way to gauge risk.
That's brilliant. I like honestly, it's funny because like I said, I just saw those notes and instantly interpreted what they were and was like, "Oh, dude, you are smart, man. You are smart to do that." Because that's exactly what you do at a workplace,
right?
Before you're gonna, table somewhere and you think about like your sales numbers or like what connections you want to create, stuff like that, like what your expected outcome is versus the worst possible outcome and your break even point and all of that. So that's brilliant. Like honestly,
Yeah.
yeah, we should. But that's our topic.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah, and then for those of you, I don't want to kill the aha moment, but the second I saw that and then was like, oh, it's a pinup, I was like, oh, that's brilliant. Like that's a really nice illustration, and I like that about your illustrations that there's a concept, a clear concept. Like I think there's a lot of really talented artists who lack that in their work, and to me, I always feel like I'd rather see. And the nice thing is you are talented and you have a strong concept, so you have the double hit, you know. But I've always told people I'd rather see something that's like terribly executed with a good idea than something that's like beautifully executed and has no idea whatsoever.
Yeah, something amazingly rendered, and then you just think about the rendering rather than
Yeah,
the message.
yeah. So like I love that about most of your illustrations have that really clearly in it, and it's really nice. And it's one of that one particular one I was like, oh, I wish I'd thought of that. All right, so that's good, man. Let me see if I can. You know what? I'll just grab it since we're doing lo-fi. So
the lo-fi art check version.
That's where I am so far.
Dude,
and so,
I forget how huge your pages are, man.
Yeah, it's kind of nuts. But anyhow, so I'm gonna probably finish this last corner, and then I should be good. Yeah.
Is that a 20 by 30?
I work on a 19 by 24. So it's like
that's giant. I mean, I knew that, but like you forget how big it is until you see it.
Yeah, and it's like I don't know why I like working on them, but I've done like 70 something pages of it so far. So, which will be cool, I think, when selling originals. Because, sorry, am I cutting out?
No, you're fine.
Okay, I think that'll come in handy when selling originals because, I mean, hell, it's a really nice piece that people will have, you know?
Right.
So the only thing that's a bummer is because I'm doing all the type and stuff on the pages, the idea of selling originals makes me nervous because the collector part of me is like, but then you won't have the whole sequence, you know?
Yeah.
But I do think I will probably do that as like a Kickstarter reward or something like that when I'm at that point, hopefully in May, unless I decide to do 10 more crowd scene pages, and then that's going to delay it. So
yeah, right.
Just talking with some of the members of the NCS who also went to support Jim's thing today about it, and that was one of the things where they're like, really, May, that's awesome, and like, are you booking shows? And I'm like, no, not yet. And they're like, why? And I'm like, well, because I keep doing stupid things like deciding to do a giant crowd scene, and that delays. Like it's hard to predict. But I also want to. Yeah. I've talked about it, but I want to make sure I'm making the best book. And once that's made, then it's like I know that I'll be able to sell it effectively because I'll believe in the product. You know.
Right.
Or I'll level up and be like, this
sucks. But at the very least, you'll know that it's the best book you could make at the time.
Exactly. And so that's kind of the goal, and that's pretty much been how I've been rolling with it. And so far, I haven't had a lot of those like massive doubt things. I've had a few, but it's fewer and far. Honestly, I think you probably feel that about your kids' book too. You probably feel very good about what you've accomplished. You probably have some moments of like, well, there's this thing and this thing, but in general, it's probably not as bad as like maybe prior attempts because it's just solid work, you know, and you know it's pretty good. Like,
yeah, I mean, intellectually, I know that it's pretty good. Emotionally, I still see all the flaws all the time, and they're always in my face. But I do objectively know that it's the best thing I've made so far. Like it's better than all the other projects that I've done.
Yeah, so, that's awesome.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't. That's a whole other thing. But yeah, I got some really bad advice on the internet about 5 years ago. I feel like it was floating around a lot. that you should learn to draw really, really well before you start a project.
Hmm.
And I was reading that everywhere.
Hmm.
Like a lot of people that I won't mention because I'm saying negative things about it, but a lot of people that tend to give out good advice on art were saying like, yeah, don't bother starting a comic until you learn how to draw. And I was like, seems weird. And like, I hate the comic that I made back then, but like, I learned how to draw by doing that comic. Like, that's
Yeah.
so I don't know the whole like you're gonna level up anyway, you know.
Yeah. I think
But
learning foundations is good for
yeah,
anything. Like honestly, learn the fundamentals of design, the fundamentals of drawing. Like those are skills that once you've learned, like no matter what you're attacking in art, like you're going to be better for it. But yeah, like it, if you're at all wired, like I think you or I are, where it's like I'm a project based learner. Like you could literally show me every After Effects tutorial in the world, and I won't retain anything.
right.
But then if I dip in and I get my hands dirty and I have a goal, like an achievable goal that's my own, it's
Yeah,
like I will absorb and learn so much more because, and not just that, then I'm better at approaching learning because I know the questions to ask.
right.
Like if you don't attack a comic, and you meet other cartoonists, you're going to ask really uninformed questions, like, but you start doing it and then you're like, dude, how do you compensate for like type and word flow because it blocks like half the panel and you have your word bubbles get cut off by the panel or you do it outside of the panel, like, you start having more um uh yeah, this is a whole other topic. But yeah, you start having more informed questions to ask because you've gone through it and you've stumbled and been like, oh, dude, how do people do this thing? Because this
Yeah.
thing, like, you start finding those things that are a challenge that you wouldn't expect. So before we go off on a totally different subject, what do you, how'd you do on like struggles and stuff? What's your current struggle?
Uh, I I find certain environments, even when I'm on the road, to be really easy to work in. I'm not in one of those environments right now,
Yeah.
and so it's one of those things where there's a lot of family around on my wife's side, and I love them. They're awesome. I never know exactly how much time I have to like do anything because there's no like solid set plan, and
Yeah.
and so it's kind of this amorphous floating deal. And a lot of it is me being like, I find it very difficult to do something that I perceive as rude, where I'm like gonna say, okay, no one's doing anything, so don't talk to me for 2 hours because I gotta go do this thing. Which is kind of what I have to end up doing at some point in time. And so, and inevitably, and this has happened a number of times, inevitably, no one will talk to me for a long time. People will just be reading or hanging out or lounging around the house, little minor conversations here or there or whatever. And as soon as I get started working, like several people need me to do stuff.
Yep.
Uh, and so I'm playing this game of like waiting to be needed or trying to anticipate what needs to be done for hours, and then I don't get anything done for hours. And then when I'm like, well, I haven't done anything all afternoon, I guess I could just work on this. Then all of a sudden, all the stuff that I didn't anticipate starts showing up.
Yeah.
It's a weird environment to get stuff done in.
Yeah, I can relate because I think it's very similar with family on my end as well, where it's like if it's a big family gathering, like a lot of the time I don't end up getting anything done. Like I'm impressed you've gotten work done because of that very factor where you'll just be like, okay, I'm gonna go work now, and that's when like everything comes. Oh, can you help with this? So like
Right.
or like the kids come out of the woodwork or whatever,
Yeah.
and it's like you could literally have been spending in like 2 hours sitting on a couch just with nothing happening the second you decide to do art. But it kind of is part of why I love that War of Art book. It gets into that, like the whole
Yeah.
resistance thing, because it's like this, like literally the same thing happens anytime you try to work out. It's like
Right.
If you try to sit down to work out, like everything comes up. You know, it's like, oh, can you do this really quick? And you're like, yeah, but this just needs like 15 minutes or 30 minutes, and
Right.
I'll be back. No, no, no. This is pending. This is important right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. How about you?
Um, yeah, for me, the struggle is just it's weird because this weekend's been really satisfying. Creatively, it's like I tracked the music for an album. Like we're gonna work on the vocals and stuff for the next like whatever amount of time, and probably layering and stuff like that. But we got the core there, the skeleton there. Um, I like that clock. It's classy.
It's the
Um,
grandfather clock in the corner.
that's rad. I've always wanted a grandfather clock. Um, but this makes me realize like maybe not so great for 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 video. Um,
I'm just glad that we're doing this at 1 a.m. rather than
nice.
at 12 a.m. so that I
Oh,
don't have to listen to it bell 12 times.
I love it. That's a good point. Um, yeah, so I think like the biggest struggle for me is just same kind of thing like it is every week, where it's just trying to juggle a lot and and effectively like get stuff done, and then also just patience. Like for me, I think this weekend in particular has been really difficult because like this page, it was so hard to leave that little corner. It's just like I hate having to and I know this is something like most artists struggle with when they're working on personal work, but it's like I hate the fact that I can't just sit for like a good solid like 8 hour session and just zone in. Because if
Yeah.
I could literally knock out that page.
Right.
And instead, I have to break it up into these little minute pieces to get it done. And at the same time, I also know people who have 8 hours and don't produce pages as often as I do. So it's like, I know it's a grass is greener kind of thing, but it's just one of those things of like, man, I think it's hard to be patient. It's hard not to just, I don't know. I don't know if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
that's been I think a struggle. But at the same time, like I think the solution to that is like I don't make the type of comics that I could perceive as being like a career. Um, and maybe eventually, but at this point, I don't see that. And the careers that are available in comics, I don't see myself being very happy with that kind of thing.
Right.
So it's one of those things of like, well, you need a career, you need to like keep a roof over your head. So if I'm able to do that and do art and perfect my skills and stuff, and then also do personal projects, I should be realistically, I should be like, yeah, this is awesome. I have the time because I didn't have that time when I was freelancing.
Yeah. Right.
So, but anyhow, that's long-winded way of saying it. So, um,
There,
yeah,
I'm reminded of the reason we have a timer for both of us.
exactly. So let's get into plans. So, what's your plans for the next
Um,
thing?
well, the other thing that I was able to do is actually part of my plans. But I was able to. I've been. I was talking to a couple literary agents, and one of them who I really want to work with because I'm excited about him. Um, isn't interested in my current book that I just finished, but would like me to pitch him several new books, and I need another project. I wrote the first part of the next book that I will likely take on, and I'm super excited about the concept, and so I'm going to keep playing with that. And I actually had to like go elsewhere to write it, and so I will probably do the same where I just take off on my motorcycle and find like a frozen yogurt shop and just be there for a few hours, with my hoodie on so that nobody talks to me, and just write a little bit more, because at this point I've kind of stalled out on everything else. I might try to get another one of the series of the Bombshell pinups done because I'd like to have 5 of those, and that was the 4th one that I finished. So if I do one more of those, then I'll have a really solid pack of prints that I'd like to sell as a pack. So those are kind of the two main things. But the book idea is not in a stage where I want to share it publicly, but it is. It is. I always look for, because I'm an illustrator before I'm a writer. I always look for what story would allow me to draw the coolest things that I can think of, and this is the exact story that is a vehicle to allow me to basically draw anything that I want. And so it's gonna be awesome. So those are the kind of the two main things: is work on that story a little bit more and flesh that out. And then when I get back on Tuesday, I'll kind of pull the trigger on all the printing and everything after I figure out this math. So
sweet. That's awesome. Yeah, I think for me, my plan is to definitely finish this page, scan it, get it up on the website. And then I'd like to probably, I don't know when we're doing our next check. It'd be kind of weird to do it Monday since it's technically kind of is Monday. So maybe that'll be a Tuesday thing.
That's probably better.
That might actually work out because I think you're back on Tuesday too.
Yeah.
So, but I think by then I'd probably like to have thumbnails for the next page too. And like I'm getting excited by seeing progress and stuff, but it's like it's one of those things of like, man, I got to be patient with it too. So yeah. All right. So the topic we can kind of touch on a little bit. I think we went a little long, but we could touch on that a little. So you want to get into like kind of what that is? You're kind of forecasting the cost of like the cost output that you have to do for different products, and then what, projecting like the sales? Or
I don't go as far as projecting sales in a situation like this because I don't have any historical data based on my work and situations like this. So any projection would be just a random stab at the dark, which isn't useful.
No.
But I will talk about a few things that I find super beneficial on large scale and small scale projects. And so just like a quick 30 seconds on why I do this. I found as an artistic person that I get very excited about creative ideas, and I don't care about money. And when you take that type of attitude to like the CFO, the chief financial officer, or the controller, or somebody who has to prove the cost of the project that you're doing, they freak out. They get very scared of somebody that comes to them and is bouncing off the walls all giddy about, some creative endeavor, because they don't care about that. They need to meet payroll and whatever. And so I was not that this is an uncommon thing, but I kind of, as an art director and marketing director, fell into this process where I learned to speak their language, and their language is risk versus reward on a numerical basis, right? And so with that, if you can say it will cost you X amount, this is your outlay of cash, right? That's how much I need right now. We need to move this many units to make that back. And so that's called the break-even point. And the break-even point is based on the profit, which is how much money you're selling it for minus how much each unit costs. And then once that profit margin reaches the amount of cost of your initial outlay, that's where you are no longer losing money, which is called the break-even point. And so you can, why don't you talk for a minute, and I'm going to point this out my screen, and I'll kind of just go through just one product of mine.
I love it. So while you're talking about that, I will say, being an art director right now, in order to get anything approved through a department, it's like you really have to do a cost versus risk analysis and a pitch. And definitely it helps, I think, kind of translate to people who very justifiably, like, especially if it's their own wallet that you're literally asking for money from, it's like it's a good thing to keep that in mind when you are like kind of running a business or working for a business as a creative. It like the idea of like don't forget that this is somebody else's money. And so like you kind of just like you would want if somebody were like asking you for like, hey, I need $500, and you're like, what do you need it for? Like, you know, you like usually wouldn't just be like, here you go, you know, like,
Right.
and I think that uh, I've noticed, like at least from the feedback that I've received, that I think that is unusual with art directors to kind of be able to balance like the realities of business and the realities of cost versus like creative fun thinking and stuff. And I think that that's pretty rare. So I think if you can get a handle on it, especially for like your own personal work as well, like it'll give you a huge leg up, personally and professionally. Yeah. So let's see it.
Yeah. So what I'm talking about here is I got a quote, right? So it all starts with how much is it going to cost? And the goal of this is if your break even point is a reasonable number of units or a reasonable number of sales, then you should do it because that means that the risk is low and the reward is high. If your break even point is a large number of sales that seems like you might not make it, then that's a fairly risky venture. And if your break even point is like super big and you're like, oh man, I don't know if I could do that in my wildest dreams, then you shouldn't do that. And so what it is it's a model that helps you decide whether you do it. So I have 48 different sticker designs right now, 49 as of yesterday, but we'll say 48 for this. And the guy that I'm printing with is a minimum of 25 prints per design. And at that level, I would get each sticker for 25 cents a sticker, right? And so if I times 48 times 25, so the number of designs times the number of units, then that's 1,200 stickers. And then if I multiply the number of units by the cost of each unit, then that bid comes out to $300. That $300 is my outlay of cash. That's what I have to pay before I do anything, right? And so then if I take this and I do these little scenarios, okay, worst case scenario from a profit standpoint, I sell them at $2 a piece, right? Best case, I sell them at $3 a piece. And so if I sell them singly, I'm going to sell them for $3 a piece, which means I make $2.75. If I sell them individually, then, or if I sell them in packs, then I reduce the price for that pack and I sell them at $2 a piece, right? So you can buy one for $3 or you can buy five for $10.
Mm-hmm.
So you save some money. So I take worst case scenario in this because that's a better assessment of risk. So at $2 a sticker, my profit margin is $1.75 per sticker sold. So then I need to figure out how much money I need to get, or how many sales I need to get to $300. So I take $300 and I divide it by $1.75, and that gives me this fraction of a number, and I always round up. So at 172 stickers, I would break even, but I'm selling them in packs of 5, and so 100, or I did 171 because I rounded down. 171 divided by 5 is 34. So at 35 packs, I will break even. I'll make my $300 back. Or, and I did the other one, 109 individuals, right? 35 sounds like a lot to me, but I'm actually there for 4 days. And so then I further break it down and I say, okay, how many would I need to sell a day? That's actually only 9 packs a day. And so that's 1 an hour. And so if I am there and I sell 1 pack of stickers per hour, then I'm on track to not lose money.
Yeah.
And so that's just how I do that, and that's how I do everything. With that. And so you do the same thing with the banners, the same thing with the postcards, the same thing with all the different prints, and you just figure out kind of basically what you're doing there. And so ultimately, if I go with printing 100% of what I was planning on it, which I don't know if I'm going to, I figured all of that cost out and the potential profit margin versus the potential loss. And for me, the potential profit margin is pretty high at over $5,000. And then the potential loss is still high, but is significantly lower than the potential gain.
Yeah.
And some of it is already sunk cost. And that's another financial term. Sunk cost means money that you've already spent that is gone. And no matter what you do, it's sunk. It's like a ship.
Yeah.
And so I've already paid $375 for the booth. That's already gone. And so no matter what happens, that cost is sunk. And so I have to do something to make that back.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I don't print anything at all, I don't put any money into printing at all, I don't have anything to sell, and I waste that money. So
Exactly. Yeah.
anyway, so ultimately that's kind of my convention math, which is
No, I think.
also just basic creative math that you should learn to do. Just
Yeah.
profit margin, break even point, units sold to get to break even point, and then potential profit in a range. What happens if it goes on sale? What happens if it sells at list price?
Yeah, and just to add on to that too, like if you're doing that in a business setting, then you'd further take from the profit what the net profit is, because that's all they're going to want to hear. They don't want to hear profit; they want to hear net, which is a whole other ball of wax and stuff. But it's like I think that's a really good. It's funny because that model I've used professionally so many times, but never for conventions for my own stuff, and that seems like just that seems wonderfully obvious, like in a good way. So I hope you guys got a lot out of that too, because to me, like that made me like, yeah, okay, I'm gonna do that for the next thing.
And for me, I was using it because I was starting to freak out because I was getting these bids in, and they're hundreds of dollars. And, in the back of my mind, I always have that voice of like, your art isn't worth anything and nobody's going to pay you for it. And this is a huge, giant waste of time and money. And, like my family is making a sacrifice financially for me to do this.
Mm-hmm.
But I have that sunk cost. I've got almost $400 of sunk cost already. And so for me, I needed to do this, not because I was trying to convince anyone else, but because I needed to know whether I'm on track or not and know whether it's even possible.
Yeah. Well, and it also, I was realizing like just like when I was looking at it, just the fact that you're breaking down what units you'd have to sell to break even, and then you've broken it down to a per day basis, you've actually given yourself a sales goal, which is really cool when it comes to your own stuff, because I think it's easy, like once again, because we're personally invested in our art, it's so easy like to just be like, well, I just want to make some art. And like you were saying, like, the creative in me doesn't care about money. It's why I'm doing like a black and white auto bio comic,
Yeah.
But it's like, um, but realistically, like if I was realizing like how good that would be for a convention, because that can be a motivating factor in even boosting your sales. Not that you're going to do hard carnival barking sales, but if you know what products you're trying to push, and you, basically, it's just like it's pretty big, pretty common sense. Basically, if you go into a conversation knowing what to expect, or knowing what your goals are, or like if you walk into a job interview knowing what your goals are ahead of time, you're going to do so much better. Whereas if you fly blind, like you run a lot more risk and potential risk. So like to me, that's brilliant for a convention, because now if you know you need to push 9 sticker packs a day, that's an achievable goal, that you can shoot for, and you can try different sales strategies throughout the convention to kind of see like what gets you to that point. And I think that's, like I said, I think it's kind of like stupidly brilliant, like in the sense of like it's stupidly brilliant because I should have been doing that to begin with, and so that's really cool. That's good. That'll be good for you to know what you
and on the flip side, from an anxiety standpoint, having something measurable and achievable, you can, because what happens to me is anxiety is an emotional and a logical state of being, whereas facts can often counter that. Like uh, my art's terrible, I'm gonna starve to death. But then I can say, but it's a fact that I'm employed, and it's a fact that I've heard these people that I respect say X, Y, and Z about my work, right?
Yeah.
So the emotion versus the logic. The other thing with this is if I hit 9 packs by noon, anytime that I feel anxious about how the show is going, I can say anything after this today is just gravy.
Yeah. And
Like I'm gonna be
it's pulling the expectations from the next day. So it's like
right,
the better you do, like the better you're gonna. Yeah, it's brilliant because it gives you a way to gauge. Because
right.
I will say, and this is gonna be like your first convention, but
Mm-hmm.
I'll say you're gonna notice like there's a lot of cartoonists who just like hate it and they're miserable and they're gonna complain about like literally you'll bump into them at another convention where it's just booming and they complain about their sales and like low
Yeah,
numbers. And I think part of that comes from like just being unaware of what their aim is when going there. I think
yeah,
a lot of people go blind into a convention just expecting that they're going to have lines, out the door to like buy their product, and they're not really thinking like, well, what am I going to do to make that happen? What am I going to do to kind of draw people to it? What product am I going to have? So like, I think it's really smart to do that math, like both for yourself and for just like lining yourself up for more possibility of success, you
yeah.
know. So that's brilliant, man. That makes me excited about conventioning and excited about you going to the conventions. I think you're going to be much more equipped. You
Yeah.
know.
I mean, at least I will have an accurate and factual representation of what's actually going on rather
Yeah.
than how I feel about
Yeah.
it. Because every convention video that I see, not everyone, but quite a few artists that talk about conventions talk about how it feels. They're like, oh man, it feels like a super busy show. And then at the end of the day, they kind of tally up what's left and they're like, yeah, I think I did all right. But I want to be like, yeah, right now, it's I've met these goals and I have a
Yeah.
record of it right here. And I'm actually going to have I'm gonna have a printout chart where
Nice.
I don't have to like, I'm not gonna like write down information in the middle of that. That's crazy. And I've done this before too. I'm just literally gonna have like a chart with boxes that I can X out.
Yep.
And so when I sell it, I'm just gonna X that out and move on. Right. I'm not gonna sit there and like count and keep a what do you call that, credit debit columns and whatever. I'm just going to be like x x x exact, and I will know exactly when I hit that break even point
Yeah.
because I'm just going to X boxes because it takes half a second to do that.
Smart.
So
It's good. I love it. Okay, we are going long, so
yeah,
I think we should call it. But I'm proud of us as a little art check team that we're kind of sticking with it. And I hope like those of you out there kind of who are doing your own art checks and stuff like that, keep up with it because I think it's helpful. Like even today, I feel like when I got home, I was like, I don't know, but then like even just having this conversation, I feel like I've learned something. And so
yeah,
like once again, that's the benefit of the art check. The other thing is I am gonna finish this page, so I'm gonna stay up for probably another 30 minutes and finish the page.
yeah.
And
And
this gave me a little boost.
I do want to say this just in closing because I'm always paranoid about people thinking things. Um, I was showing real numbers, but I want to point out that if you look at a product on a per unit cost, the margins can seem really big, and don't feel like you're getting screwed as a customer if you buy a print that costs somebody $2 to print and they charge you $10 for it, because you're not aware of the other things that they also paid for that aren't selling, because
Yeah,
that's all cost out. And so like if you look at like, oh man, he's making $1.75 per sticker, that's like a crazy margin. But I'm gonna have 1,200 stickers and I'm not gonna sell 1,200 stickers.
exactly.
And
No,
so
and that's a good thing to keep in mind with prints too, where it's like sometimes a print that costs somebody $2 to print. But let's say it's like a limited edition silk screen print. I mean, if the screen printing takes a long time, the cost isn't that high,
right,
and so you're paying like $20-$30 for like a poster, and um, like the margin is ridiculously high, but at the end of the day, they're also offsetting the entire run by that cost. And to be honest, like a lot of people who go to comic conventions and booth at comic conventions just break even. And
Right.
so that's something to keep in mind is like, but I think most people who are kind of watching and following our art check are kind of hip to that and aware of that.
Yeah,
Be like,
but
oh, it's
it
terrible.
just makes me feel better to say it out loud.
Oh yeah. Yeah, man, I'd hate to see those people's reactions when they see manufacturing.
Oh yeah, don't
Relates to.
if you ever want to be happy buying anything, don't get into manufacturing.
All right.
Okay.
So, yeah, I'm excited for you. I'm glad you're making art and being productive whilst in such a distracted environment. And I'm sure, like, I'm looking forward for you getting home as well because I'm sure it'll be nice to be back in your element, having your space and everything. And we'll touch bases Tuesday. Good Tuesday.
Yeah, let's plan on Tuesday.
All right. So let's see. Do you want to?
Yeah, if you want to see Josh's stuff, then go to quarterlystories.com and you can see all of the pages that are leading up to this current giant crowd scene page. And that's quarterlystories.com. You can also, if you're on a mobile device, check it out on Tapas, and you can subscribe. And then I'm sure there's some sort of metrics like liking and starring or hearting or something that you could do there that would be helpful as well. And so do that. And then if you want to see my stuff, you can go to corykerr.com. And I have all of the designs that I am planning on bringing to Salt Lake Comic Con up. And so even if you're not at that show and you would like something, I can figure out a way to get it to you. So hit me up on social media or something like that. You're on Josh's channel. So if you haven't, hit that bell. And you can just Google my name on YouTube and that's my channel there. And then, yeah, so we'll see you guys on Tuesday where we may or may not resume a normal streaming, but definitely by the time after that we will.
Oh yeah, sounds good. All right,
Okay.
bye.